So we're just going to talk for a few minutes about what's going on this week, and then we're going to jump right in to tonight's session. Okay. Great stuff happening here in the So Long with Georgie Girl. We're going to be going over the Christmas tree celebration, and that's super easy on how to make Christmas trees with this new HotFix product. So most of you guys by now already have your HotFix product. You either got the 4-yard roll or the bigger 10-yard roll. I'll show you the 10-yard roll. Okay? This stuff is super easy to use, and that's what our focus is going to be on tonight, plus how you can make a Christmas tree easy panel quilt any size you want, whether you want to do a lap or a queen or a king with beautiful panels, and how we go about doing that. First, let's start with announcements. So there is Tula Pink's new homemade fabrics coming out in March. That you guys have seen some of these fabrics. I've been posting about them on the wall, and there is a contest. So let me tell you about the contest that's coming up. I've gotten a couple PMs about it. I haven't done a formal announcement. Yes, we are participating in the contest for Free Spirit. The contest is $10,000 to the winner of a quilt made with homemade fabrics in 2020. Each shop gets to submit a winner from their shop now. In addition to that contest, which the grand prize winner of the Big Tula Free Spirit contest will win $10,000 worth of items, including, I think one of the items is her 570 sewing machine, which is fabulous. It's really exciting stuff. Between now and then, we are running at Petting Fabric a monkeying around contest. So between now and December, you guys will need to take your monkey fabric, which was shipped this week, in the last 2 weeks actually. All your pre-cuts were already shipped. All of the daisy chains went out. All the tropical florals went out. The color weaves went out. We want you to make one of those quilts and post the progress of those quilts, or you can make your own quilt with your pre-cuts. But you need to show your progress between now and December to be entered to win. You have to post on the Tula Pink Quilt Support Group using this fabulous fabric, and there's some fabulous fabric in here. So those are the two contests we have going on. The Monkey Wrench contest winner will win a spool quilt kit, which is valued at $200, that's coming out in March. So you definitely want to enter into that contest because it's super easy. You just make a fun quilt. We will not be judging. We're going to have an independent judge or judge for us, but I don't care if it's one of our patterns, a variation of a pattern, or your own beautiful quilt. We just want you guys to sew, and we want you to sew, a lot. So those are the two contest announcements. They are Tula related. And then there's a charity going on. And we have a plethora of people that have signed up and are making quilts, like Susan and Nancy. Colleen is sewing. Lou Ann and Karen. Belle donated quilt tops. PJ has offered to do a quilt. What I need from you guys, Barbara and just so many people. Miss Hughes, they've all donated batting. So I just need some battings, and quilters. So we need to get 10 quilts done between now and January 1st for Tanya Dunsbar's group, Tanya Wacker. And she works in a domestic violence relief home. So we want a shelter. So we want to cover the beds at that shelter with quilts of love. And we don't care what fabric it is, so long as it's beautiful fabric and love sewn into those quilts. So please go to the Sew Along with Georgie Girl and look for the charity event and sign up there because I need more sewers. Okay, it is 1:15 now. Everyone should be joining. I see a ton of people popping up, so that's great. We've got 3 groups joining us tonight from the Kaffe Fassett Quilt Support Group, the Sew Along with Georgie Girl group and the Tula Pink group. So the Tula Pink Quilt Support Group. So we'd love to have you guys. You know the drill. The first thing I need you to do is to go into chat and text and make sure that I can hear you. If we lose sound at any time, make sure you chat in there that it lost sound, because it pops up and I can see that there's a problem. Okay. So one of the objectives that we had for this week is how to use the HotFix. And now we're going to start the Christmas celebration, so on. So we have Fat Quarters by Tim Holtz, which you see behind me. I'm going to show you some of his fat quarters. Okay. They came in packages of 12 fat quarters in a bundle. Okay. First thing I need you guys to do is take these fat quarters, and what I did is I washed them. So I took them apart and I washed them all. I think this is really important that you wash these fabrics. There's a lot of colors. There's some tea colors, tea stain colors, cool stuff in these fabrics. There are some green undertones to these fabrics. And then there's some pink undertones to these fabrics. Very pretty, very Christmassy. Let me show this to you. So I just sat there and I washed my 2 fat quarter bundles. That makes 24 fat quarters. And then I pressed them while I was watching TV with the family. Okay? That helps me get prepared for the placement of my fabrics. Then I kind of organized them into groups, medium, dark, and light colors. So I could tell by holding them up or stepping away which ones had more, lighter colored backgrounds impressions versus a little more bold impressions. And all of these will work. Okay? You can see behind me that I have one already pressed, and I took pictures of it on the wall. So this is what I would do with the Tim Holtz fat quarters. Tim Holtz is a great designer for neutrals. If you want to mix designers, which seems to be the theme this year at Market, we saw a ton of different designers coming together with their fabrics. That happens to be, Tula with Tim Holtz and Kaffe with Tim Holtz. Lots of beautiful quilts with mixed fabrics. So because that is the theme this year, we want to play off that theme and kind of mark our territory that, hey, I built something during this era. Okay, once you get your fat quarters washed, pressed, then we're going to move into the next stage, which is figuring out what we want to put on our fat quarters as far as our theme, whether it be wreaths or Christmas trees or whatever, okay? Your favorite items that you make at Christmas, you can also imprint on your quilt. Now, one thing you need to remember about these fat quarters is that fat quarters obviously are 22 by 18. We're seeing a little trend where some of the fat quarters are coming across 22 by 17. So make sure you measure 100% of all the fat quarters you're going to use in your background. The way that I choose to make this quilt and make the panels are, I'm going to stage 2 trees on 1 fat quarter and make sure, the reason why I like to do that both on 1 fat quarter is I want to get the heights correct on my trees. And if they're imprinted on the same panel, being a fat quarter, and then I split it, at least I know before I split it that I've got it set correctly. I can also trim it down a little. It's easier to start with a fat quarter and put your tree on the fat quarter and then size it and cut it than it is to press this kind of HotFix tree down on a panel and you made it to, off proportion. At least if it's a big piece of fabric, you can cut the tree panel square and you have wiggle room to work with within that big piece of fabric. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now you have taken your fat quarters and you've washed them. You've pressed them. One thing I need to share with you about the fat quarters being pressed. Hold on just a second. Chris, do we have a techie problem? I had a screen pop up. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, just hold on, you guys. Zoom has gone blank on the screen. Okay, we're back. Gotta love Zoom. Okay, so let's continue. One of the things that I want you to know about pressing these fat quarters is if you're going to use best press, we've discovered recently that best press with the different scents have been bleeding some of the ink on some of the panels. So make sure that you get unscented best press when you go to press your panels, okay? So now you've taken your panels, you've washed them, you pressed them, and now you're ready to start thinking about your designs. Again, what I did, if you look here, is I did both trees on one panel, and make sure that you measure your panels and you do them so that they are landscape. So you know the difference between when you print on a piece of paper, portrait is the longer way, landscape is the longer way horizontally. So you want to make sure you layer with a 22 out left to right horizontally, what we call landscape. Does that make sense? So it's 18 inches from here to here, and it's 22 inches left to right. That gives you more room to put two trees on these panels. Now this is an interesting little piece of fabric here. Let me show this to you. This is Tulip Pink's new handmade fabric. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's adorable. It's got all of these little stitches. It's a ruler, so it's an impression of her ruler. And if someone will remind me after we get to the Q&A part, I'll show this to you up close. But inside the little squares, she's got little images that relate to sewing, like a safety pin or scissors. It's super duper cute. And so this, I really kind of played with what I want to do as a background for my Tula quilt that's in Christmas. And I realized that I want to use this. And then I found this cute little piece of fabric, and I cut out a tree, which I'm going to show you this in a minute. But what I did was, we all have this. We all have these weird, odd pieces of backing left over. Most of you guys might have thrown out this little square of backing. Most of you might have kept it. I keep mine. And then look what I have right here. This is Free Fall, and I've got her bird. So by taking this scrap backing, I took the HotFix and I pressed it on here, and then I'm going to show you how I cut that out. And this is an adorable little tree with the bird right in it. All right, so that's going to go on the left side of my panel. And what's great about this grid is that it has the ruler effect, so I can line up two trees pretty easily with this type of backing. So let's take my panel backing and put it back up. And then I have not adhered this HotFix to it yet, so I wanted to take it off and show it to you. But then I can take this and we can press this on here. All right, so how do we get this far? How do we decide what to do and how to get our trees ready to go on a panel? Let's talk about that, okay? Okay, so you need to go to a children's website on the internet and print out whatever those fun objects are, whether they're poinsettias or wreaths. For me, it's Christmas trees. And I gave you a link to a website that has fun Christmas tree stencils. And these stencils are papers that you can download and print, and teachers can have the kids color for, the holidays. You can see them behind me. I think there's 100 different trees. So let's talk about how to pick trees that will work with fabrics that are not too difficult, but yet would look stellar when you start breaking them apart, okay? And what you want to do as far as printing them. So you want to pick your trees. At this website, you can print or download 3 trees a day for free. That's 3 trees, 3 trees. So you want to go there, download 3, print them, save them to your hard drive, and tomorrow you can download 3 more. So over the course of the next several weeks, you can make 3 trees a day. Super easy. When you download and save this to your hard drive, which I would not just print it, I would save it to your hard drive so you can go back and print more copies. I would at least print, so let me move my stuff so I can show this to you, several copies of the trees. So I printed this one, this is a fun, fat tree, and that's this one right here, which I'm going to build up to be a tree. So that's the basis of my first tree. And then I got this tree, and this is a tiered scallop tree. Now the paper that I'm using is a pretty thick paper because I'm going to trim it with my favorite scissors, and I'm going to want it to be not flimsy, a little thick. So I use a premium paper that's pretty thick. You can see that's pretty thick. It holds, it doesn't fall down when I hold it. And I use this to print my trees, and then I cut them apart right here. I actually had a helper cut them for me. So here's the staggered tree, which I'm going to show you in a second. Okay? So that's step 1 and step 2. Download your trees, print them on paper, cut out your stencils, put them back together on your other piece of paper. And that's your stencils for that tree. And the reason why you want to do this as 2 copies is you want to have a guide to come back to and to figure out what you're going to do as a topper to your tree. And if you look at the tree, you're going to see kind of an impression of where the flowers or the ornaments were on the tree, and that will help you pick fabrics just simply by looking at fun stuff like this. Okay, so then you put these stencils with that tree so you can remember what goes with what. Then you have a fun tree like this. Okay, this is an attached scallop. Again, you cut out your components, being the top here, top, middle layer, and the bottom layer. And of course, we have a star. So we have a star. So take those components and put it down with your stencil and lay it on top. A lot of times you will find in my home crisscrossed. I will put one piece of paper like this and I'll alternate it the opposite way so I can easily see where the other piece of paper goes. So I went ahead and I staggered up a bunch of Christmas trees. You can see this one behind me, which is here. And this one is the tree that I used here on this right side, which we're going to talk about. Okay? Okay, so once you have all your trees printed, then you can start figuring out what you want to do with the fabrics. And the easiest thing to do is to take one of your trees and cut it out. So once you cut it out and you have the stencil, before you decide what fabric you want to use, then you could take your stencils and you can start laying them right down on fabrics to decide how would this look on this particular fabric. Now, I have a lot of scraps, as you guys know, in my studio. So I can take a very small, weird piece of fabric like this, and I can press on it. You know, I've cut something out of here, okay, for our webinar, and I have a little piece left over here. But this little piece right here fits perfectly for one of the stars that I want to use. So it fits perfectly for the topper to a tree. I mean, amazingly, 2 years ago, if you guys had asked me when I started this Facebook group, we did a post about how small is your smallest scrap and what do you throw away. And I started watching what people did with these small pieces of scrap, which they made little bead necklaces. So I kept mine. But now I'm looking at it going, how perfect is this to make little toppers to the trees. And I've actually kept a bag. I have to find the bag, but I kept a bag of these little pieces for Karen Cross in our group, because she's going to press these down and wash these over and over again for us. And that's a little weird tip about HotFix. So HotFix, if you watch the webinar that I did from Market with the guy, John, from HotFix, and he did a demo, he told the story that HotFix was originally designed and used at Disney World, because Disney World wanted a product that they did not have to embroider all their hats, which they did a lot of that. The machines were breaking down often. They had younger people that didn't know how to use the embroidery machines coming in. So they wanted a product that would adhere the fabric and the felts and the letters, you know, Mickey letters, onto things, and they could press them and they would wash 50 times and not come off. And that was HotFix. So that's, you know, really cool story about HotFix. And we like using it, but there's a trick to it. You really have to know how to use it and get it to press. So we're going to talk about that. But when you do press it, make sure you keep all your little scraps, because you're going to be able to use them for lots of different things. Okay, so now you have cut out your stencils. You're starting to lay your stencils down on fabrics, and you're starting to figure out, what do I want to use with what? Okay? What you want to do next is, once you kind of know which fabrics you want to use, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have a big fat quarter piece like I do. You can just take a small piece like I did with the backing here at Tula. So I took one of my backings and I just HotFix a small piece of it. Look, just this small piece. I don't have to HotFix a lot. Just a small piece. And I did it over a circle, and I did it over the free fall bird, which you see behind me. That's it. So I took a small piece, and I'm going to use a small piece of this. Now, once you figure out what fabrics you want, then you need to take your HotFix, and you need to cut it. Let me grab my HotFix. You need to take your HotFix, and you need to trim up a piece that you want to use. When you use this HotFix, you trim it. Shiny side goes down on the wrong side of the fabric. So my board has just got tons of stuff on it tonight. So I've got this fabric here, a little strip of fabric that I had, and then I took the HotFix and I laid it on the back and pressed it. So let me show you what I did. Okay, I came in, grabbed this fabric, I laid this fabric face down, and then I took my HotFix and I started pressing it. When you press your HotFix, you want to make sure that the words, that you can read the words. So the shiny side is down and it's facing the wrong side of the fabric. So the right side goes down, and on the wrong side of the fabric, you will place the HotFix on here. You will press. Down, and you will count 8 seconds. You will not iron. You're going to press. And then you're going to move and you're going to press. And then you're going to move and you're going to press. Make sure you can see fabric all the way around. If you can't, you're going to be pressing this right down, and it's going to be sticking to your ironing board. And then your ironing cover becomes sticky. After you do this whole panel for 8 seconds, I need you to flip this over. And I need you to press this side. And you want to make sure you don't, if you see any of this HotFix, don't run your iron over it, because that's glue and it's going to get to the bottom of your iron. Press it for 8 seconds in each section and hold it and count to 8. You should smell a little bit of the HotFix smell. because it's melting. It's melting onto this and making it sturdy. Okay, once you do that, I don't have my iron on for this demo because I've already pressed everything, if you're wondering. But once you do that, you have this side, and you know what makes this super easy? Is that you can take your patterns, your stencils, and you can lay them onto the wrong side here, and you can trace them with a pen. Nothing fancy, just super easy tracing. Okay? Okay. Once you trace your skirt or whatever to your tree on here, right there, you're going to hold it up. I was holding it up so I could see it. So y'all need to see it right there. But I do hold it up, and I look at the pattern to the light. I want to see my stencil to the light, and I want to see where I'm going to be cutting this, and does it look good? Because guess what? This part gets peeled off. So you can trace on this as much as you want, and if you have a Cutter Polar light board, that makes this so much easier because you can lay it down on your Cutter Polar, and you can trace, and you can see right through here how it's going to look. And then you're going to take your trim scissors, which I love these. I got these last year when I was starting to do Laura Heine a lot more. And you're going to come through, and we're going to trace this real quick, trim this. And you're going to trim this up. And the reason why I'm trimming this is because I want to show you how easy this is to adjust where you want it to go before you adhere it. This is a little different than the fabric products that you use for your other collage. And I like collaging. I don't get to do it as much as I would want to do it. But the problem with the other products is that it's always tricky to know when you're going to press, when you're not supposed to press it. Yes, you can reposition it, but you know, you got to be careful about it does get sticky. This is not sticky. So if I were to put this on something, it would just fall right off. It's not sticky. But you can feel the glue. You can feel that little HotFix right there on the back of this. Now, here's what I want to tell you, and this is really important because I've made this mistake. When you press this fabric on both sides, let it cool. Walk away from it, put it aside, do another panel. Press it on both sides, walk away from it. If you trim and you try to peel that off too soon before this HotFix has cooled down, this is going to stick to itself and create a little wrinkle in it, kind of like when you're trying to tape your Christmas presents and the tape got to itself before, you know, it got around the edge and then it's already attached to the paper and it's just a hot mess. This could be a hot mess if you peel that paper off while it's still hot. So let it cool down, then you can peel this paper off, and then you can put this anywhere you want on your fabrics and start figuring out how you want to arrange your Christmas tree. So you can kind of play with it and see if that's going to be enough contrast for you and if that pops enough. If it doesn't, you want to just test out your different fabrics. That blends too much, right? So you just go through your fabrics and you find the ones that you really like with this print. And that contrasts really well. So then you can start laying out different layers to your tree. You don't have to press these down yet, and I wouldn't. I would lay them flat, not on your mat, because you know not to press on your mat, not even with something between it, because your mat will warp. But on your, you know, ironing board or somewhere, lay these out and start designing your tree, and they can easily be moved around. And then when you're ready, you can come back and you can press them down, but there's a couple more tricks you need to know before you do that. You need to take, let me move that out of the way. You need to take your trees and make sure they're the same height. So when you get your papers like this and your trees, I think the only thing you need to do is decide how big do you want your quilts, how big do you want your panels, and how big do you want your trees in your panels, okay? Because your quilt, you know, these back quarters, if you're going to split them in half, then that means they're going to be max 10 inches wide maybe, because you're assuming if you go to 11 inches that you've got a full 22-inch panel, and you may not have full 22 inches in all your panels. That's why you want to measure your back quarters first. The height that you're going to have there is going to be 17. You can guarantee yourself 17. So you want to center your trees inside your panels and center your trees on each side of the panel. And so I'm going to split mine, and I'm going to make them, you know, 10 even on the width. So I know if the panel is 10 and I want my quilt 80 wide, or let's say I want my quilt 88, because I usually like an 88 by 96, then I'm going to put a 1-inch sashing in between my panels. Then I can lay that on the Excel, I can write it on a piece of paper, and I can figure out with 1 inch on the left, if I don't have a border, and 1 inch in between each one of my rows, I'm probably going to do 8 panels across because they're 10 wide and I want to get to 80. So you'll be able to quickly figure out how many panels you want to make. Now you can make a whole fat quarter and even, you know, 10 by 10, you can make it an 18 by 18 and make a large tree in there. You could do the 12 days of Christmas and that theme in each panel on your whole thing. You can find those stencils. All right, so you just would need to take this onto your printer and blow it up. That's an easy setting. You could go to Office Depot. These are free patterns. Go in and or just design your own, and then go in and have them blow it up for you if you don't have a printer. But once you blow it up, then you can cut it and trace it and press this down, and you've got your HotFix ready to go. Once you get your pieces cut and trimmed and laid out on your panel, then all you need to do is come back and press them down, flip it over, and press the other side. So I have to go back on this webinar to make sure that I've said this, and I apologize for repeating myself. That's why I have 4 kids, because I repeat myself. But let me make sure I bring the phone over here. You want to press this panel first with the words up, the shiny part down onto the wrong side of the fabric for 8 seconds on the whole section, and flip it over and press this side again. That's how you know you've got it sealed. And once you have it sealed, you can start drawing your objects on this side of the HotFix, hold it up to a light, and make sure that lines up the way you want before you cut it. Now you've got all your pieces. Once you have all your pieces, you can start laying them out on your fat quarters. Okay, that is how easy this panel is to make. But let's talk about how I jazzed up some of the harder trees. Or they look harder, but they're really not. So I'm going to tell you about that now. So obviously, this is an easy tree, right? This is an easy tree. If you're going to do a scallop like this, I would take each one of these scallops, being the top scallop and the middle scallop and the bottom scallop, and I would put 3 different fabrics together to really make that fun. And you could play with that whether or not you want to interchange the spots, lights and darks. I'm probably going to keep the same type of colorway in the whole tree. So that's really important. You want to put dark on the top, middle, and bottom of your tree if you're putting it on a panel that has multiple colors on it like these do. The Tim Holtz has a lot of colors. So it's going to be difficult to put a light fabric, a medium fabric, and a dark fabric and get it all to pop on a very colored panel. So think through that when you're cutting your pieces, okay? So let's talk about easy trees like this, easy trees like the triangle. Those are pretty self-explanatory. When you cut out the base, think you do not have to copy this bottom. You can do something creative in the bottom and creative in the top like a flower, just so long as the heights of all your trees before you press your panels, the heights, right, the height, the top and bottom total match on all your panels. So if you haven't pressed panels down and you're laying them all down on a bed or on a design wall, it's kind of hard on a design wall because the glue for this doesn't stick to the wall. I had to pin this, right? It's not like a typical design wall. The glue's not going to stick. So if you lay it all out, then you can kind of make sure all your panels are the right height before you go down and start pressing them. Okay, easy trees. Now, when you get to creative trees like this one, how do you do this one? And I did a little cheat sheet on the wall for you. What I did with this is I found scraps. Like this is a scrap. All right, let me show this to you. Can you see that? That's a scrap. So this is the scrap from the skirt that I just cut. But this scrap can easily be cut into a strip. And I can line this, use this as a guide, and line up your strip to the right width. And then you know, okay, this strip kind of matches right here, and trim it. And at first what I did, and I did it wrong, and I put a picture on the wall for you, is I cut a bunch of triangles out of my scraps, and I tried to get cute and do triangles left and right, and it just looks like dinosaur teeth sideways. So then I came back and trimmed my scraps to match kind of this shape. And what I did is I didn't worry too much about getting the right width of the scrap, just so long as the scrap covered left to right the impression of the Christmas tree. And then I used my quilter's ruler and I trimmed it to match the exact size, and I took pictures of that on the wall for you. And then when I got done, I went through the tree and I alternated pulling the section left and right out of the tree to kind of give it like a little stair step look. And it came out really cute, and it's matching this pattern very closely. So this pattern is a guide. It's for inspiration, and that's how I did that. And so that tutorial, basically picture by picture, is on the wall. Now, I started looking at this tree, and I'm trying to think, what I want to do is I want to take the same fabric and make two trees on my quilt. But I want the two trees to be very different but complementary. So this is an example of that. This is the same fabric, which is the spot fabric. I want to make two trees, and then I'm going to split this panel, and I'm going to separate them in very different spots on my quilt top. So I started looking at other tree inspirations, and I came through, and I'm like, you know what, this is cute. I'll show this to you. That's a cute little, like, V type of zigzag on this tree, but I don't think I would get the impression that I really wanted to match my other tree, which was that scrap rectangle tree. So what I realized was I could take this very simple tree. Let me find it for you. I could take this tree, which was more difficult, and scraps, which is this one over here, which you'll see on the wall. And I could take this tree, which is very simple, cut it out of the scraps that I used in this other tree, and then just slice it. I just sliced it apart to make it taller to match the height of this big tree. And that's what you see here. So I just did some fun slicing on it, keeping it perpendicular, and then an angled slice. And you can copy this in my tree that I posted on the wall and see how I sliced it if you want. It came out pretty cute with an impression that was very similar to this other tree. So that's my last tip. My last tip is to find two trees that are similar, make them out of the same fabric on the same panel, and play with them so that when you split that panel and you move them to different sections of the quilt, you're going to get some similarity impressions on looking at the quilt. It'll tie together because there are two similar trees out of the similar fabric and the similar panels, very different places on the quilt. And it will help ground the eye as it floats. It won't be so busy that it's so different, but it will have some similarities to it. So that's a pretty cool effect. Now, if you got the Kaffe Fassett and the Tim Holtz fabric pack from us, I sent the green jumble as your binding. That's really cute. Okay, now one last tip, and then we'll go to Q&A. I took all my scraps. You guys have seen. Oh, by the way, this is a great fabric right here. This is called Full Flower. Let me show it to you. It has tons of flowers on it, and I just started cutting, just putting a little bit here on the corners and pressing on some of that HotFix, and then I just cut out the flowers one side to the other until I get the flower I want. And these are the flowers I'm going to use on the tops of my trees. So that's going to be kind of fun. I may cut some of the small flowers out and make them into ornaments. So that's really cool. Now when you get done, and we've all seen some of my favorite fabric, which I'm going to show you here. All right, let's see if I can find it. I don't know if you guys can see this. I have some Elizabeth sitting on this table. So I'm going to be making a Christmas tree out of Elizabeth. She's upside down. So figuring out what I'm going to do before I press that. But I just need a small section, as we're realizing, to make a really fabulous panel. So this is Cactus. You guys have seen me use this already on some stuff on the wall. And believe it or not, this really turned out super cute for Christmas. Well, this cactus, when I started cutting it and using it in my quilt, I had a lot of little pieces left over on scraps. And I took that scrap, which you can see behind me is one of the big flowers right here. Well, then I started taking these little pieces and trimming them off of the cactus leftovers that I had, and I pressed them together to make this ornate flower. And it's literally like 6 or 7 pieces here, you can probably see, of these different scraps that already had HotFix on them, and I just stuck them on top of each other to design a beautiful cactus flower. So waste not, want not. You can find great uses to these little scraps. Or you can package them all up in a Ziploc like I'm going to do, send them to Karen Cross, and she will press them down and test them and wash them to make sure this HotFix is not coming up in 30 washes. Okay. Whew, that's a long session for us. I am going to go to Q&A now. So for you guys that have been with me before, and this is not your first rodeo, you know that this is the end of the webinar. I'm going to be sewing these panels. Before we go to Q&A, I have one surprise for you guys. If you if you press and make some cool panels and go ahead and put them up on the wall, being at the Sew Along with Georgie Girl wall. If it's a cave panel, put it up the cave wall. If it's a Tula panel, put it up on the Tula wall. But the first 10 people to make panels and put them up is going to get a fun little pillow pack from me. These are 3 fat quarters that you can sew together to make a pillow case for your bed. So that is a Thank you for watching, participating, and you can win just simply by hanging in and learning how to do these panels, which are super easy, super fun.